So, as I've talked about a couple of times already, this whole decision by Marvel and the writer and one of the head writers, Ian Wing or something like that, A. Wing, um, basically the decision to make Mary Jane Venom has, been met with a lot of mixed reactions. Some are okay with it, some are not so okay with it. And a lot of people feel like it's the worst decision that Marvel could have done because they feel Marvel is running out of ideas and all they're doing is trying to refreshen a lot of prior character IPs so that way they don't have to ultimately off them, if you know what I mean. And Mary Jane being Venom is potentially one of the ways they are doing that. They want to try to keep her fresh and everything. Kind of give her a new coat of paint, a makeover, and going the Venom route is one way to do that. But again, a lot it has been met with a mixed reaction. Like I said, some like it, some don't. But another another decision they made, of course, I can agree it's kind of controversial. Maybe it's not necessary because I'm thinking to myself, all right, you have Mary Jane as Venom. Why do you have to go this route? Because to me it just didn't make any sense, if you know what I mean. And what I'm talking about basically is the revelation that they made Jean Grey into a literal goddess. Yeah, a literal goddess. Basically, she's part of this. I can't think of the name, but she's part of this, like, a quartet, this group of ancestral beings now that watch over everything, and it's even hinted that she's probably, as powerful, if not more powerful, than what is known as the one that is above all, if you will. And a lot of fans, like I said, like with Mary Jane, are not particularly fond of this. I mean, some might say, well, from a character perspective, because she has the Phoenix within her, that it makes sense. It makes sense for Jean Grey to go down this path and everything, inevitably. And I do agree, a character, having the powers that she does, psychic, powers as well as Phoenix powers, being an Omega level mutant, if you will, I can agree that, going down a path like this makes, a lot of sense. But, here's the thing. We have seen many interpretations of the Phoenix take place, depending on how you enjoy them. We saw how, the X-Men Dark Phoenix movie, took its, stab at it. We saw how Last Stand took a stab at it, and that got rebooted in, thanks to Days of Future Past. We've seen how the classic animated series has taken a stab at it, as well as the continuation, kind of bringing it to its conclusion. We've seen all of this. And, depending on how you feel, never once was it ever hinted at, that, she was going to be, elevated to that cosmic level. Never once was it ever, indicated that she's going to be, omnipotent, if you'll be an omnipotent, celestial immortal. Never once was it ever hinted at that in any shape or form. So, for them to do this with Jean Grey, it is, a very controversial decision. Um, but what's crazy? Even though I feel like it's probably an idea that, unlike with Mary Jane, is unnecessary, when I look at this idea and I look at the Mary Jane as Venom reveal, I look at that idea as well. I'm no stranger, as you probably know, following this channel, to decisions being made about characters undergoing through changes that a lot of fans in the fan base feel are not needed. You know, but in this case, even though I felt it wasn't needed, I will give credit where it's due. They did have a plan for it to come to an end and how it was going to come to an end. And of course, what I'm talking about, as probably as predictable as it gets, is the Mecha Sally arc by Archie Sonic. So, in case you guys don't know, back in around, I think, 2013 2013, not 2013, but around 2000. Well, when did it happen? I'm trying to think. I know it happened. Looking at the dates here, 2014. I have posted the reboots up there, the reboot covers. So basically around 2012 throughout 2013, for almost 2 years, basically for 17 issues of the main book, and for 4 to 6 issues of Universe, the spin-off book, we had the Mecha Sally arc. And in total, when you look at the number of books in between, all together, I should say, it basically amounts to almost 2 years of story. And a lot of fans like myself didn't like the idea that Sally basically was, a roboticized slave weapon of Robotnik. Of Eggman, I should say. I mean, we understood the reasoning, we all saw the reasoning, and that's great. But the way Ian Flynn went about it, and how she became Mecha Sally and all that, it just felt like, it was unnecessary. I mean, as I've mentioned before, the blueprints obviously were drawn out perfectly, or drawn out as best as they could to get you from point A to point B, but it just felt like over time it was just getting repetitive. It was just getting repetitive, and it went, it went on too unnecessarily long than it should have. A lot of fans like myself, being, fans of the comic for as long as we have been, would expect something like the Mecha Sally situation to last maybe 4, 6, 8 issues at most. And then after that 8th issue, hey, she's back to normal. And if not 8 issues, we would say about a year's worth of issues, and that's it. Come around the whole first year, take that 1 year, that issue that celebrates 1 year of it happening, I wouldn't say celebrates, but acknowledges 1 year of it happening. You use that 1 year anniversary issue, boom, back to normal, no big deal. And that's one thing I will give him credit, because he did, Ian Flynn, even though obviously he knows by listening and hearing what other people have had to say, he knows maybe it wasn't the best idea to go with. I will give him credit. He had a reasoning for it. That reasoning was that Sally was going to be de-roboticized, assumedly by issue 250, and she was going to get basically the redesign that she got. And if you see an image up here that has the roboticized version of her and the redesign on the one side is what she would have gotten. That was the plan. His plan was to basically get to that point by at least the 250th issue, and then basically plan to go forward after that, with the story, and maybe focus on Sally wanting to get, payback or something for what Eggman did and all that. But we don't know. We may never know, because of the fact that behind the scenes, as we all know, the lawsuit occurred, and basically Archie said, you know what, screw it. Let's just reboot everything and, do it in a way that, avoids any future lawsuits in the future, get rid of certain characters, this and that, and the rest is history. And just take the redesigns that were meant for the Freedom Fighters, and instead of introducing them in the, pre-reboot continuity, place them in the post-rebooted continuity. And the rest is history. But again, I give him credit. He had an idea. He had a plan for Sally. After the story arc was all said and done, and that was to restore her. And the reason I say that, the reason I bring this up, is because when you look back at the other stories that I mentioned, I don't think once was there ever a plan discussed. Archivally, if you look it up archivally, within Marvel whatsoever, or even DC or Image or IDW or Dark Horse, I don't think there was ever a plan talked up to take the most, powerful opponent, beings, if you will, the OCs, the overpowered OCs, if you will. I don't think there was probably ever a discussion, a meeting to say, hey, let's make this character, an immortal, omnipotent goddess that is now on the same level as the one above all. Or, hey, let's take, the love interest that was married in the Primeverse at one point to Spider-Man Peter Parker, and then that was taken away. Let's make her the new Venom. I don't think there was really, a plan or a discussion, for that to, really happen, despite what people think. I think they would just said, hey, get an idea that works, or come up with an idea that you feel will work, and keep certain characters relevant. And that's why, like I mentioned, some people are mixed about Mary Jane being Venom. They don't like the idea that all of a sudden here she is going from being the jackpot superheroine to now being Venom. It doesn't make sense to them. It's like, even though they got an explanation, which I'll talk about in a moment, in issue 6, it just felt like it didn't make any sense to them that, they should do this. So what I'm talking about when it comes to, an explanation in issue 6 of the all-new Venom, what I'm talking about is they do explain in the story how Mary Jane became Venom. How she basically, took on the symbiote outfit, if you will, throughout. And basically, it is an interesting explanation, but even with the explanation, a lot of fans felt like it just still doesn't make sense. Like, okay, this is all part of the aftermath of that symbiote war story that you guys did, and everything. So, okay, we get that, but what sense does it make that, hey, she wanted Peter Parker and Venom, or at least Peter Parker, to fix her jackpot device to make it better so she can have more than just, the same options pop up for her powers and everything. And it's understandable, like, okay, the Venom's influence on that would make that possible now, but it's like, to them, how can it make sense for her to roll the dice or roll it to 3 skulls? Like, to them, why would Paul, the most despised character so far in the comics, in Marvel Comics that is, why would he invent something like that could potentially kill her? What's the deal? It's like, to them, the explanation they got was decent, but it still didn't make any lick of sense. It didn't. And it's understandable, why people would, feel the way that they did, when it comes to that. I mean, yeah, as I've said before, it opens up a lot of possibilities for Mary Jane. And as I said in a audio video, basically for Mary Jane, the writer behind the story, obviously he understands, like I've mentioned before, and I say this with all due respect, no offense, he understands that a female being the host of some kind of slimy, gooey, melty entity like the symbiote, like Venom, could have a lot of creative fun with it, can be creative and mischievous with the powers. And if one of those powers is turning into goo to slip through cracks and everything, melt down into goo, slip through cracks, then that's great. And hey, the character could have some fun, even though they might have to do it for a mission or something. But again, they did give an explanation. It's just that the explanation just did not make any sense or sit well with with the audience. It didn't sit well with the viewers and all that. So it's understandable why they would be upset about this. And I'm totally in agreement with, hey, I get how you feel. I understand how you feel. But I'm also in the understanding of sometimes they have to do these things to kind of keep the character fresh, keep them relevant, or else they're going to have to go down the path, like I mentioned earlier, to where they have to get rid of the character in a very unfortunate way. And that's the truth. But like I said, not all the ideas they come up with is good. Like I said, with Jean Grey, her being the Phoenix, that's another story. With Jean Grey being, a goddess, being, basically part of the elite, if you will, up in space, up in the cosmic universes and all that, looking down upon everything, but still being an X-Man and trying to now balance her life there with what she's become now. Yeah, some people, like I said earlier, might feel like it was the that the trajectory of the character of the Jean Grey with the Phoenix powers and her psychic powers, being an Omega level mutant, that eventually it was going to lead to something like this in the future. People will give the explanation that this was a possibility, and that's true. Maybe it was, maybe there is truth to that, but to me, I think honestly, you could have done something, a little bit more different to get to that point. We've seen her as the Phoenix, no matter what interpretation of the X-Men you read, we've seen her die over and over and over again, you know? And you would think that maybe one of those deaths that she went through, let's say even as the White Phoenix, at the end of X-Men End Song, that basically that would be her ascension to the goddesshood, to basically, now be among, the celestial beings, that look over the universe, like, the one that's above all and everything. You would think that would make more sense, and it probably would. I mean, even when Jane as Valkyrie died in Thor: Love and Thunder, no matter how you feel about the movie, she died and disintegrated into little sparkles and little stars, but she ascended. She is now part of. She's basically now part of Olympus. She's now part of the gods and everything, as the goddess Valkyrie, if you will. She's like a guardian angel. She can look down upon Thor and all that, be back there when they need her to be and everything, and so on. So to me, despite how you feel about that movie, at least it gave her, becoming Valkyrie, wielding Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, if you will, Mjolnir, and everything. It gave her a purpose as to why she was holding it, why she became Valkyrie, and why she was able to ascend. It gave sense. It gave purpose. And to me, Jean Grey just doing what she's doing what she did. Some would say, well, she died, and that did, well, some would say that she did die or something like that, and maybe that's true. But the way people have described it, she didn't necessarily die. She just did something that allowed her to elevate to that next level. And to me, again, I understand that maybe the trajectory for her character as the Phoenix, was heading in that direction, but, to me, it would have made more sense if you would have had her sacrifice herself and all that, as the White Phoenix, so that way, she would have a true purpose to be ascending to the goddesshood that she ended up getting. So I'll admit, Marvel, they're not always going to win, in the creative department, but sometimes, depending on how you look at it, there is some good and there isn't some good. There are some decisions that make sense and there are some decisions that don't make sense. And, honestly, the Mary Jane one, I think, could make sense, could have potential, especially if you want to go a little fun and mischievous, if you will, with her and Venom. But the Jean Grey one, I could see, what people are talking about, but still, it's like, what sense does it really make? In the end, in closing, I will acknowledge that, not all comic shops, or not comic shops, but comic book publishers are going to, or comic book companies basically, are going to have good ideas. They're not. Not everybody's going to be on board with Mary Jane being Venom. Nobody's going to be on board with Jean Grey being, an immortal goddess now. No one, honestly, no one was on board with Mecha Sally, with Sally becoming Mecha Sally. That nobody was on board with any of that. Or not anybody. Excuse me, getting tongue-tied here. But like I said, not everybody's going to be on board. That's what I'm trying to say. Not everybody's going to be on board with Sally being Mecha Sally, Jean Grey being an immortal goddess now, Mary Jane being Venom. Nobody's going to be on board with those ideas. Not everybody's going to be on the same page. Despite the explanations or reasonings and all that. Because basically, why mess with something that doesn't need to be messed with? Like with Mary Jane, you want to make her the superhero jackpot? No problem, go ahead, do it. People are fine with that. You want to make Jean Grey a goddess? Guess what? Build to it in a major story arc to where she earns it, in a way that's more understandable and, acceptable. With Sally becoming Mecha Sally, yeah, not everybody, not everybody liked it, period. But, there was a reasoning for her sacrifice, and there was a plan for her to be restored. There was a path. It just ended up, running into a bunch of roadblocks and getting repetitive time after time after time. So, there was a reasoning, but still, not everybody was on board with it, period. So, in closing, like I said, I understand how all sides feel about this. And you never know. Maybe the Mary Jane as Venom deal is just a temporary situation, and maybe by the end of the year it'll be come to an end, and they'll just be like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore, and maybe they'll reveal that it was nothing but a dream, that Mary Jane was just dreaming it, and everything. Maybe that might happen. I mean, yeah, it's a stupid, out, if you will, a pathetic way to get out of the situation, but what where else are you gonna do? What else are you gonna come up with? You know, we'll just have to see. Jean Grey being where she is now, maybe that's not gonna last long either. Maybe she's gonna be forced to make a decision. You're either part of the celestial beings now, or you give up, being the host of the Phoenix, and you just be a regular semi-omega level mutant on Earth that basically has to always constantly fight, for their kind. So she can make that decision. That decision could end up happening. Who knows? Who knows and everything. I mean, I gave my thoughts on what I think could happen with the Mary Jane Venom deal. In the audio video, I said basically I think three things are going to happen. Either, Paul's going to betray Mary Jane and Dylan and Venom to this Scarab or, Scarab group or whatever that group's name is that, Flash Thompson was working for. And I want their hands on Dylan. Paul may betray them. He may try to, find a way, stay up night and day to figure out a method to separate Venom and Mary Jane to a point that they'll still need each other to survive, but, they can be their own people now. They don't have to be fused together on a molecular level. Or three, he ends up basically, becoming so desperate that he ends up bonding with another symbiont, maybe one that's more evil and corruptive than Carnage or Carnage and Venom ever was, and then that causes him to not only break up with MJ, which the first option could make happen as well, but also makes him into an enemy. Gives fans now a legit reason to not literally like this guy if that was to happen. But those are just my thoughts on the direction I think it could go in the future. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here and give my thoughts on the whole situation, because I know people are, wondering like what's going on with Marvel and everything. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And hopefully maybe Marvel will wake up one day and realize, hey, these decisions we're making, they're not best for business. Let's get back to basics. Let's get back to what brought people to the dance, made them fans. And hopefully things will, get better from there if that moment happens. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you later, but give me your thoughts on everything I've had to say here in this video. And until then,